Hey guys, welcome back. Today I wanted to, not going to talk about any news or anything that's come out. I don't think there's any, I haven't really seen anything worth talking about today so as far as news or anything that's come out. I just wanted to talk about something that I think DC fans obviously notice, and maybe even some Marvel fans or people that, don't really prefer one over the other, but let's face it, most comic book or superhero, people that are into these genre movies, most people prefer one over the other, at least a little bit. So, but a lot of people don't want to acknowledge it. So I'm going to acknowledge it because it's very obvious to me. There's obviously a clear double standard when it comes to DCEU movies and MCU movies. I think it applies to several areas of the movies. One being the fact that a lot of people think that, or make the claim, that people don't die in MCU movies, in Marvel movies. Obviously, that's not the case. I think I had posted a reply on Twitter to a post that showed the battle between Hulk and Iron Man in the last Avengers movie, in Age of Ultron, the battle between them, and Iron Man was in his Hulk Buster suit. He's trying to calm down the Hulk, basically. And so the post paralleled that battle with the battle between Superman and Zod in Man of Steel, which I thought was a really good parallel, besides the fact that Zod was a villain. But, and Hulk wasn't necessarily a villain, he was just needed to be contained, I guess you could say. So I thought that was a pretty good parallel, just to show the fact that when Hulk and Iron Man in his Hulkbuster suit were fighting, they were doing it pretty much just in public. They weren't out in the middle of nowhere or away from civilization where no one could get hurt. There was people around everywhere. And I know that, one person made this statement: Iron Man made sure that the building was empty before he threw Hulk into the building. But still, if you're destroying a building in the middle of a city or whatever, people are going to get hurt. And if there's this massive green monster thing and a man in a suit the same size as him, and they're flying around and they're fighting and they're causing all this destruction, there's always going to be collateral damage. Just because you don't actually see people laying on the floor dead doesn't mean that people aren't getting hurt. They don't have to make it in plain sight obvious. And also in Age of Ultron, they lift up a huge chunk of a city, and it's just, there's plenty of examples in Marvel movies where people die. And the first Iron Man movie, even in his prototype suit, he causes explosions. And when he actually gets home, makes his first Iron Man suit, and flies back to where he was held captive in the Middle East, he kills people. He has stuff shooting out of his suit and killing people. So I just think there's a major double standard when it comes to that. People want to talk about Batman being brutal and killing in cold blood or whatever in Batman v Superman. It's just, yeah, Batman, like I have discussed in previous videos, this was a more brutal version of Batman, but you have to look at the context of the story and where they were trying to go in terms of character development and introducing this new Batman. He's an older, more experienced Batman, and he has just lost all faith in mankind pretty much in this movie. He doesn't think that anyone can stay good. And so, I mean, that's kind of off topic a little bit, but just to show, just explaining why this Batman is a little bit more brutal. But anyway, in all of these superhero movies, there's going to be people dying. There's going to be, I mean, they even discuss it in Civil War when, you know, the government is trying to convince them that that the Avengers need to be governed and that they need to sign the Sokovia Accords. You know, when they're showing all the footage of all their battles in New York and in Sokovia and all these places where they have had battles with villains or whatever, they're showing the Avengers how much death and destruction they have caused and why they need to be governed and not just, you know, act on their own accord, you know. So, I mean, there's obviously that kind of stuff going on in Marvel movies, and it's realistic. If that were to happen in real life, there's no way that there wouldn't be people getting hurt. And I'm not saying that's a good thing or anything, but it's what would actually happen. And, you know, I think that part of that, these kind of statements come from the fact that people, that DC movies tend to have a darker tone. So they kind of just make it seem like, oh, these movies are so dark and there's so much death and, you know, all these people die and they always, you know, they're killing people and whatever. Yeah, DC movies have a darker tone because that's what DC Comics, I mean, they're different. They don't have to be, you know, just a comedy fest like Marvel movies are. And don't get me wrong, I do like Marvel movies, but there's no denying that they are filled with comedy and humor, which, you know, sometimes it's fine. I laugh at them. I mean, I think sometimes they go a little overboard, like Guardians of the Galaxy. Both of those movies were sort of kind of just like ruined for me in a way because it was so much humor. And I understand that, like, even in DC movies, okay, yeah, there's some humor here and there or whatever, but for me, some Marvel movies, like, some scenes are just, like, it doesn't have to be every scene there's something funny. You being shy? Like, Guardians of the Galaxy, both of them, especially the second one, though, I felt like it was just so forced, the humor, and some parts actually got frustrated because I was like, why do you have to throw a joke in there? You know, it just kind of ruined it for me. One example is towards the end, when Star-Lord, when they're realizing that Ego is actually, you know, what he's trying to do. He's trying to pretty much just destroy and take over, and, you know, I actually liked the plot of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 a lot. I liked it better than than some other Marvel movies. I thought it was a more complex plot. I liked what they did with his dad, and I liked the whole story. But some of it was ruined for me with just too much humor. For example, like I said, when they're realizing what he's trying to do, and that Ego reveals to him that he planted this tumor in his mom's brain because he knew he couldn't stay attached to her. He loved her, or whatever. And Star-Lord says something like, you know, you shouldn't have killed my mom and smashed my Walkman. Like, that's a big part of the story, the plot. That's a big part of the plot, like a big reveal. And, you know, it would obviously be very emotional for that character that just found that out about his mom. And, you know, I feel like they kind of just, you know, you shouldn't have smashed my Walkman. They threw that in with, you shouldn't have killed my mom, or whatever he said. You shouldn't have gave her a tumor, whatever he said. Like, that's just not something that needs humor or a joke. It's a serious subject, you know. So I just, like, I can't imagine those kinds of things, those kinds of lines, those kinds of jokes being included in a DC movie. It just doesn't make sense. Like, it doesn't fit, you know. And the fact, you know, all people say, well, in DC movies, the DCEU, they're always just, it's always dark and they're always fighting at night or when it's raining or there's no sunlight or, you know, there's no daytime. People say stuff like that. You have to think about the characters. Like, Batman operates at night. He's, you know, supposed to be in the shadows and stuff like that. You don't see Batman out doing a bunch of stuff during the daytime. It just doesn't make sense. Like, yeah, we picture Superman and, you know, maybe even, you know, the Flash, Wonder Woman, like those types of characters, we picture them doing stuff out in the middle of the day and stuff like that. But Batman, no. Like, I mean, no. Like, even in, okay, I really like the Dark Knight trilogies, the Christopher Nolan movies. I like them a lot, but, you know, the fact that Batman is operating a lot at times during the day, for instance, when all the chaos was going on with, you know, Bane and everything, it kind of looks a little awkward, and someone pointed that out in a video when they were comparing Christian Bale's Batman and Ben Affleck's Batman. And I kind of didn't really think about it till they pointed that out. But when they had, like, these two fighting scenes side by side, and Christian Bale's Batman is fighting in, you know, whatever during the day, and then Ben Affleck's is during the night. Like, it looks strange. Like, it doesn't really make sense for him to be, he operates at night. You know, that's when he comes out. So it just, and Batman v Superman was heavily focused on Batman. So it just makes sense for, you know, it to be kind of dark or whatever when he's fighting or they're fighting and stuff. It just, yeah, Wonder Woman was a little different, but, you know, that was just her movie. It didn't involve Batman and stuff. So, I just, like, I mean, could you picture the Justice League or members of the Justice League fighting Steppenwolf, since we're going to see them fight Steppenwolf in Justice League? Could you picture them battling in the middle of the day at an airport parking lot like we saw in Civil War? No, that would look silly. Like, it just would not work. For me, the Civil War fight was just for the sake of fighting. It wasn't even a real fight, in my opinion. And plus, I don't know, like, airport parking lot was kind of a strange location, and they're like meeting up like a school fight. Like, it just, I don't know. And they're kind of joking around again during the fight, and like Spider-Man, like certain characters you expect to be like making jokes, or, you know, like the Flash in Justice League, and what? You can say hi. Or, you know, Spider-Man in the Avengers movies and stuff, now that he's introduced. But, I mean, like, okay, for instance, Hawkeye and Black Widow, saying like, oh, we're still friends, right? Or, you know, whatever. Like, in my mind, to me, Black Panther in that movie was the only one that really had a reason to try to be, you know, fighting someone, because he thought that Bucky was responsible for his dad dying. So he was the only one that made sense why he was trying to actually fight somebody. But the rest of them, it was kind of just like, I realized that they were having disagreement about the Sokovia Accords, but fighting was like, what's that going to accomplish? You know, maybe if they would have stuck more to the actual Civil War story. But it just, I don't know. To me, it just felt like they were fighting for the sake of fighting in an action movie, for having an action scene. And that's another thing people say, is that DCU, they don't have any action. And I think they have a decent amount. I think, you know, I don't have a problem with how much action they have. Because they have good stories and good plots, and they have deeper meanings. And Marvel movies are, you know, intended more for a general audience. I understand that. But, like, it's okay to have a deeper plot and, you know, not just action every scene. and then a mediocre plot, just a flat plot. So everyone has their own opinion, I understand, and there's, you can like Marvel and DC both. I like both. There's just certain things that I prefer when it comes to DC over Marvel. I don't have a problem with the fact that they have a darker tone. I don't think Superman is mopey and depressing and sad like a lot of people say. Again, it's part of their character development. Zack Snyder even said that he felt like, Superman needed to experience some trials and setbacks and challenges in order to get to the Superman that everyone wants to see. It's a much more realistic approach than, say, the Christopher Reeves Superman that we had back in the day, which I know everyone will always love Christopher Reeves. I do too. But in the DCEU that we have now, it's a much more realistic view of how the world would actually react to a Superman. I mean, there's a reason why he didn't reveal himself sooner. Yeah, he was kind of doing things like, here and there when he saw that people needed help, but he had all these aliases. He would just take off and move somewhere else when he would help someone because he didn't want people to figure out his secret or that he has these special abilities, and then be revealed to the world. So he obviously waited. Look how long he waited in Man of Steel. He waited till he was in his early 30s to reveal himself to the world and actually take on the role of Superman. He's a very new Superman. He has not been Superman for a long time. Even in BVS, it's only been 2 years. And the world, he's seeing how the world is reacting to him. There's people rejecting him, and there's people that love him. So he's seeing all this mixed reaction from the world, and he doesn't know how to, how to process that. People are just not satisfied. Like, he's trying to do the right thing. He's trying to help people. He's trying to save people. But, the fact that he can't save everybody is, it's a problem for him. It's hard for him to accept. And, the part of the world just doesn't think he belongs, So it's just, and he's still at the end of the movie still sacrifices his life for this mankind that's been hating him. And, so it's, people are complaining that he's mopey, depressed, sad, whatever, he's not hopeful. They're getting us there, That's why Gal Gadot at Comic-Con was saying, if you're a Superman fan, you're going to love Justice League. This is a Superman movie. So it's just, people just want it, he's a perfect being, he's a perfect Superman in a perfect world, everyone loves him, and blah, blah, blah. That's not how it would actually, that's not realistic, So I kind of went off on a tangent there, but just trying to show the dynamic, sometimes people, their knee-jerk reactions to these movies, they don't realize, they just don't think about it in a deeper way because we're so used to Marvel movies. And, a lot of people have said, Marvel movies have this really simple formula. They do it every movie, and their movies are successful. But, that doesn't mean that DC has to be like them. Imagine if they were trying to be like Marvel or doing the exact same thing as Marvel. Then what would people be saying? Then people would be saying, oh, look, they're just trying to copy Marvel. They can't do anything original and blah, blah, blah. So I think it would just be, people are not going to be satisfied either way. But I kind of just wanted to point some of those things out. I think it's just going to be that way because there's people who just don't like Zack Snyder. And there's people who just don't like the fact that they're not, a bunch of comedy and super bright and all that stuff. But like I said, it just doesn't fit the DC universe. It just doesn't, they're not the same. And that's okay. I think that's what people have a hard time accepting, that because Marvel has been making movies for a long time now, and it took a while for DC to start, for the DCEU to start, people, that's just what they have to compare it to. So you know, they want them to be more similar, but at the same time, like I said, then they would be saying that they need to do something different or whatever. So that's just my little rant that I wanted to do today. Let me know what you guys think. Do you think that there is a double standard? Do you think there's not a double standard? Let me know what you guys think about that whole topic. So thanks for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff, and we'll see you next time.